a new revolution that changed everything. That story, next. America, a different country. It would get whiter and more monocultural.
Free at last! Free at last! Thank God Almighty! We are free at last!
Until a new revolution that changed everything. That story, next. Signature.
Ho, ho, ho.
Haitians,
So it took off, didn't it?
AHS.com, I get a free quote today.
the year was 1965. Freedom and racial equality were on the march. From Selma to Montgomery.
We are standing before the forces of power in the state of Alabama saying we ain't gonna let nobody turn us around.
And yet, America's immigrants were still effectively chosen based on the color of their skin. Asians, Africans, and other groups were severely restricted.
Ellis Island will be their first taste of the promised land.
The race-based immigration system that began in the 1920s, which Adolf Hitler had admired, was still going strong.
Those who do come will come because of what they are and not because of the land from which they sprung.
But in the shadow of the Statue of Liberty, everything would change.
With my signature, this system is abolished.
President Lyndon Johnson signed a sweeping new measure declaring that America would be colorblind when choosing its immigrants.
Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy.
The law was a little-known chapter of the Civil Rights Movement, and it would change the face of America, setting it on a path to become a much more diverse country. This demographic revolution happened largely by accident, thanks in part to a congressman who wanted to keep America white.
We are a prospering people, wherever we live, or earn our livelihood.
By the 1960s, the authors of the racist immigration laws of the 1920s had gotten exactly what they wanted. America was overwhelmingly white.
They wrote laws to ensure that that would happen, and it worked.
Immigration had plummeted. The percentage of foreign-born Americans dropped by nearly 2/3. As a New York Times headline had predicted, America's melting pot had effectively come to an end. But since the war against Nazi Germany, there had been a growing consensus that a race-based approach to immigration was wrong.
The Nazis devised their own quota system.
Because of the awfulness of Hitlerism, the awfulness of the Nazis, they say, this is terrible. We need to rethink this. We need to redo this.
I shall ask for adequate and decent law for displaced persons in
President Harry Truman despised the country's immigration laws.
All of them have been behind barbed wire for years.
They discriminated against post-war refugees, shutting many of them out, even Holocaust survivors.
President Truman signs a new bill.
He signed a landmark law letting in more refugees.
Arriving in the USA is the first batch of displaced persons.
But he could not get rid of the race-based immigration system. President Eisenhower was also not a fan of the old laws,
The calculated pressures of aggressive communism
because for him they damaged America's image as it fought the Cold War.
Soviet Russia parades its military strength.
You had communist governments that were saying to their peoples, look, the United States is a racist country, and we were very concerned about sort of losing a propaganda advantage.
DiMaggio connects.
What's more, earlier immigrant groups like Italian Americans, once said to be racially inferior,
What is America to me?
were becoming part of the American family.
We in America are immigrants,
A new idea was born.
a people welded from many nations and races.
America, the land of immigrants.
We take it for granted that that's how we've always imagined ourselves. That's new at this time.
My country welcomed so many sons and daughters of so many countries and gave them a fair chance and a fair opportunity.
One of the early champions of that new idea was John F. Kennedy.
He was part of the immigration story. I mean, the Kennedys, Irish immigrants.
As a senator, he wrote a classic essay on the topic.
No distinction is made between the native born and the naturalized citizen.
And he called for an overhaul of the discriminatory immigration law.
We want to go forward.
Pushing for fair immigration was not only right in Kennedy's view, it was good politics.
In 14 weeks of campaigning, he attracts enormous crowds.
Since recent arrivals were gaining political clout. Kennedy's support for immigration
Ask not.
helped vault him to the presidency.
So help me God.
In July of '63, he submitted an immigration bill to Congress
All people can make equally good citizens.
promising equal treatment of all peoples. Just a few weeks later, thousands marched on Washington.
Free at last! Free at last! Thanks for the money! We are free at last!
It's a time when there's protests saying you've got to have a country founded on the equality of all people.
What do we want now?
We've said that in our documents before, but now it's time to really live it out.
But Kennedy's immigration bill stalled in Congress.
President's car is now turning onto Elm Street.
And then that November,
It appears as though something has happened in the motorcade route.
tragedy struck.
The President of the United States is dead.
Vice President Johnson was suddenly thrust into power.
I need your help. I cannot bear this burden alone.
He urged Congress to honor the fallen president.
No memorial oration or eulogy could more eloquently honor President Kennedy's memory than the earliest possible passage of the Civil Rights Bill for which he fought so long. I urge every American to join in this effort.
Congress responded,
All men are created equal.
passing the Civil Rights Act,
The most sweeping civil rights bill ever to be written into the law.
the Voting Rights Act,
Today is a triumph for freedom.
Medicare and Medicaid,
A nation that was built by the immigrants of all lands.
immigration was next on the agenda.
We should not be asking, in what country were you born?
But the president faced a big obstacle. Congressman Michael Feehan of Ohio.
Our subcommittee held executive hearings this morning.
Feehan was a conservative Democrat who led the House's main immigration committee.
Where's my immigration bill, goddammit? When are we going to get a bill out? Our friend Feehan is still sitting on it.
He was a staunch defender of the old quotas, determined to preserve America's whiteness.
And misinterpreted.
Southern segregationists like Strom Thurmond joined him, and other opponents of the bill warned of impending doom. There would be, quote, unlimited Orientals and Negroes, they feared. quote, hordes of Congolese cannibals, a Trojan horse at our gate.
The voice of the people was heard in the land.
But thanks to Johnson's legendary political skills
An overwhelming mandate is handed to Lyndon Baines Johnson.
and the landslide election of 1964,
Ours is a time of change.
the president had the votes in Congress.
Now, under the monument which has welcomed so many to our shore,
On October 3rd, 1965,
those who seek refuge here in America will find it.
the president signed the Immigration and Nationality Act. Every nation now had an equal shot at sending its best. The president and his allies did not expect the law to actually bring in a lot more immigrants.
This bill that we will sign today is not a revolutionary bill.
Congressman Feehan actually believed that America would stay white. He had negotiated a big concession in the bill to give family ties more weight.
People pledge proud dedication to their chosen land.
He assumed that that would benefit white Europeans since they already had relatives in America.
Congratulations. Nice to have you.
But he would be proven very wrong. Immigrants arriving after 1965 were over 75% non-European,
Raise your right hand.
coming from places like Asia and Latin America. They relied heavily on the family unification measures to bring in their clan. The very measures that Congressman Feehan had pushed for. Thanks to the 1965 Act, America today is on its way to becoming a majority non-white country by 2045. That colossal demographic shift met a wave of resentment.
The president wondered aloud, why are we having all these people from shithole countries come here?
And migration under Trump plummeted by roughly 2/3.
We take anybody, come on in, anybody. Not anymore.
And those policies led America into a new immigration crisis.
7 million workers vanished.
Desperate for people willing to go to work.
We've never had this many job openings ever in history.
One hardly anyone is talking about.
2 job openings for every job seeker.
It's a big problem all over the country. It's actually been fueling inflation.
Which could take money out of your wallet.
The big question now, when will prices start dropping?
That's coming up next.
Wow.
Populist conservatives are right. America is facing an immigration crisis.
We are going to build a wall! Our country is full.
But they're hung up on the wrong crisis. The real disaster isn't that too many immigrants have made it to the U.S.
You are now U.S. citizen.
Congratulations.
It's that we aren't letting in nearly enough.
The fertility rate in the United States fell to yet an all-time low.
More and more American women are deciding not to have kids at all.
America is in the middle of a baby bust.
The birth rate has fallen dramatically. It's below replacement level.
Not enough Americans are being born to replace those who have died.
Historically, the safety valve for the U.S. has been immigrants.
But starting under President Trump, immigration to the U.S. plummeted, cutting us off from the workers we desperately need.
Growing fears of a recession
and fanning the flames of economic decline.
a massive labor shortage.
The highest inflation in 40 years. The clock is ticking on Social Security.
America has three options.
You can either have more babies,
which many experts say just won't happen,
or you can welcome more immigrants,
hereby declare on oath,
or you can dwindle and fade into stagnation and irrelevance. I would favour the second option, welcoming more immigrants.
Instead, we've chosen the third, stagnation.
Yep.
Refusing to let in more foreign workers, according to one estimate, could cost the US economy $9 trillion by 2030. On the other hand,
if everybody in the world who wanted to move could move, by one estimate, the total income of humanity would double.
You heard that right. Global wealth would roughly double as workers from less affluent countries move to join bustling economies. Other nations are looking to cash in on that gold mine.
Immigrants flock in, 1 million a year.
Taking a page from America's old playbook.
A number of countries noticed what it was that made America the richest, most powerful, most dynamic country in the world.
They have come with little but their clothes on their backs.
By welcoming people from all sorts of places and allowing them to become citizens.
Take Canada, for example. While America's population is 14% foreign-born, Canada's population is 23% immigrant. And that number is about to rise even higher. Late last year, Canada announced a bold initiative.
Look, folks, it's simple to me. Canada needs more people.
To bring in nearly 1.5 million foreigners in 3 years. Immigration isn't a threat to our northern neighbor, it's an opportunity.
We need people to arrive with their talents, with their hopes, with their dreams, to build our communities, to build our future.
Study after study has shown that immigrants are world-class entrepreneurs. Over 40% of Fortune 500 companies were founded by immigrants or their children.
Immigrants are the people who are most enterprising, the most courageous, the most creative. And these are precisely the people that can build an economy.
Immigrants in America are 3 times more likely to start a business than the native-born by one count.
The American dream is alive and well in every single immigrant that I've ever worked with.
Canada expects a similar return on investment. And it carefully chooses who gets to be part of the Canadian dream.
They came from many lands.
Since the 1960s.
And that's where America doesn't do their jobs, because we don't carefully choose, and because of it, like Donald Trump said, that we basically get the worst, or the majority of the worst, towards drug lords and people that just are not qualified to be a good citizen, regardless whether it be an American citizen or the country that they're in, due to the handicaps that they're going through. Be unfortunate. So yes and no pertaining to what they're talking about. If the people that was coming over here, first of all, if they was legal, that in and of itself would change the dynamics. And secondly, if the people coming over here that we could choose towards bringing in not necessarily the best, but the moderately best, rather than the worst or the moderately worst, I think it would have a big difference on our economy. And plus, none of this that I've been listening to so far, and probably won't on this particular program, talks about the harsh conditions that is now befalling upon to the planet in one form or another, that is affecting the resources towards trees, paper, building materials, food, adequate good water, I could go on and on with all that. See, nobody's putting that into the equation. I mean, whenever you have a planet that's seven or almost 8 billion people strong, somebody is going to have to take care of all these people. Because if global warming, the environmental crises that we're facing now, is only intentionally getting worse and worse and worse, that means there's not going to be as much resources pertaining to the food and, yes, trees and paper and building materials. So because of it, it will have a profound effect upon society. Probably more so than COVID. COVID was a big nail biter pertaining to how much that it affected society. What I'm talking about is going to affect society even more so over the span of a 5, 7, 10-year period.
1960s, Canada has forged a unique, world-renowned approach to immigration.
Each has given something of his strength and skill,
favoring immigrants with the skills that their country needs.
Everyone.
See, Canada recently just got through going, and I think it's still happening because something happened today, because it's been like foggy or smoky all day long, and I'm pretty sure that's probably from the fires up north of us, because whenever the winds are blowing just a certain direction, it can blow just as quickly as it does south as it does blowing back to the east. And, you know, the more trees that you destroy, the less oxygen, the more declining health, the more pertaining to people having to depend upon people that don't have declining health. I mean, it just absolutely puts a burden upon the society like you couldn't believe, because one lick after another lick after another lick after another lick, regardless whether it comes in the form of fires, droughts, floods, famines, hurricanes, tornadoes, or whatever, it all has a declining effect upon to the resources, not only here in America, but upon to the planet. And of course, the more that we keep ushering in the petroleum industry towards using up more and more oil, the more we're going to see these erratical weather changes, these erratical forces of nature, that if you think things is bad now, hang on to your seat, because we ain't gotten in the thick of this thing yet. Wait until about another 7 to 10 years from now, the direction that we're going, if we don't take a drastic turn towards getting off of crude oil, I am thoroughly convinced that there's going to be continents that are going to become at the brink of uninhabitable because of what's happening not only above our heads, but what's happening below our feet. And these are all elements that the professionals have not put into proper play in what's actually occurring. You know why? Because we have still been on that denial trip towards being climate deniers, and it's only been until just recently that people has woken up to the fact that, by God, this thing really is heating up. There really is differences in our weather patterns. The global environment really is changing, isn't it? Duh. Yeah. There's been certain people have been saying that now for the past 25, 30 or longer years. Somebody told Carter that 30 years from now we was going to feel the effects of climate changes, climate crisis changes, and his reply was, well, 29 years from now, then get back with me. Well, this isn't something that you can just turn off and turn on like a light switch. That's our problem. We live in a society over here to where it's now instantaneously, you know, whenever we pull up at a McDonald's, we expect to have our food in our automobile in less than 5 minutes. And it don't matter if it's a small order or a huge order. In other words, we could have a van full of, let's say, 12 kids, and every one of them's getting a Happy Meal. In 5 minutes, you're going to have every kid with a Happy Meal. Why is that? Because we live in a society that is instantaneously, and it has basically dulled our common sense factors, in not understanding the difference between going to McDonald's versus trying to change climate disasters, that you just don't do it on a dime. It's kind of like trying to stop an 18-wheeler or a train. You can't stop certain things from happening on a dime. That's the reason why we're supposed to have good professional people that's supposed to have their eyes open. That way we don't get blindsided. That way we can turn and change in our directions rather than it being catastrophic. Because according to Carter, we wasn't supposed to have awakened until the 29th year, and now all these things is happening all over the world. And like I said, it's not a light switch. It's not something that you can just turn off and turn on. Unbelievable in how far-fetched that our professional people has become whenever it comes to common sense values, common sense realities.
They've decided to cherry pick, and they're making sure that they're getting the people who are going to really help them.
Canada's merit-based system has become the gold standard, copied by Australia, Singapore, the United Kingdom, and now Germany, mired in its own labor shortage.
Around 2 million workers are needed across multiple industries.
Even a butcher shortage, which threatens the nation's bratwurst supply. Berlin last month created its own merit-based immigration system to fill crucial jobs.
Germany really is in urgent need of more foreign workers.
While other nations open their doors, America is falling behind.
Other countries are going to be better than us someday because we aren't allowing the best to come here anymore.
Canada admitted over 250,000 skilled migrants and their families in 2021. The US lets in only 85,000 highly skilled workers per year, despite having 8 times the population of Canada. The lucky few coming to America are just that, lucky and few. Skilled worker visas are so rare these days, they are awarded by a lottery.
How can we drive home the point that this system is completely bonkers? What if we add a lottery on top of it? That just makes everyone understand this is capricious, arbitrary. The lottery is a symbol, but it's not a symbol of opportunity, it's a symbol of whimsicality.
Tech giants shed jobs at a rapid clip.
What's more, even winning the immigration lottery,
Historic layoffs at Twitter, Meta, Lyft, and Amazon.
is no guarantee that someone will stay in America.
More than 200,000 tech jobs have been lost since the start of last year.
When massive layoffs hit Silicon Valley in recent months, they likely included thousands of talented immigrants on temporary work visas. They were forced to find a new job in just 60 days or leave the country.
What is it, that America has too many software engineers? It really doesn't. Nowhere has too many software engineers. These are absolutely essential people.
Some of the world's most promising talent kicked out the door. Other countries will be happy to have them. Up next, I'll give you my thoughts on our broken immigration system.
And it's not just the broken immigration system, but it's so many other things that's added to that, thank God they come out with some sort of new x-ray. Just the other day they advertised it, that our mail carriers can start to use to make more of a determination of whether or not drugs are being mailed over here to America towards some sort of special x-ray machine that's going to be able to detect it. You know, that should have been engineered 10 years ago, before we had the crisis with the drug crisis like we do now with fentanyl. And of course you got the gun violence problems with all the gun violence. You got the jails being full. You got so many crooks and too many cooks in the kitchen pertaining to crooks that's taking advantage of the system right now. That's forcing the system to even become that much more broken. And I kind of look at it as it being pillars. You know, 9/11 was a pillar that got hit up underneath our foundation that even to this day we still haven't fully recovered from. COVID was another big pillar that destabilized our foundation. Other factors you got to put into play of things that has occurred, regardless whether it was the Vietnam War, regardless whether it was Desert Storm, Desert Shield, regardless whether it was the Afghanistan War. All these things was pillars that backfired on us, that basically caved in. And every time that there's a calamity, regardless whether, I mean, they're saying that right now the damage is up towards Maine and New England and up towards that area pertaining to the flooding is going to be historical as far as being hundreds of millions of dollars, if not be a multi-billion-dollar storm, because you have damaged some of the most historical buildings up there, and there's really no price tag to put on some of that stuff. But whenever you have all these issues that's happening to a big country, and you're knocking down these pillars, eventually, if you knock down enough pillars, the whole foundation starts to give in. And once the foundation starts to give in, then you see massive layoffs, like we've seen with Meta and Amazon and some of these other bigger companies. And we are putting out diversified mixed messages to the people, to the point that they can't understand if our country is coming out of the hole or if we're still digging ourselves into the hole pertaining to COVID. In other words, these mixed messages are causing complex situations in people's lives to the point that they get depressed, they don't want to work, they become suicidal, mental health issues because of people doing drugs, or maybe their parents was on drugs whenever they was born. I mean, there's just one ecstatic problem after another. And the bottom line is this: if we don't get a grip on this, as a planet, as a whole, we are looking at some very, very bad, hard times ahead. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight pertaining to collapsing, but eventually, whenever you knock down enough pillars, regardless of how strong that government, Rome thought it was the most strongest government ever created on the planet, and which at the time it probably was, but it did not succeed in remaining that strong. It deteriorated from the inside out. And the reason why it deteriorated from the inside out was because of bad planning. People that did not put a pencil to what was actually occurring during the time that it was occurring, and they didn't pay close enough attention to the signs. Just like us, we should have seen that climate changes and global warming was going to be a part of our factors of life 25, 30 plus years ago, especially whenever Al Gore run for president along about the year 2000. We should have seen this. But instead, we was walking around with blinders over our eyes. And we wasn't concerned about tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. We was only concerned about today. We was only concerned about stuffing our own pockets full. And now look what a calamity that is caused upon to the future of our children and our children's children. It's awful.
10 years ago, the last serious effort to fix America's broken immigration system collapsed. In April 2013, a bipartisan group of senators, the so-called Gang of Eight, tried to push forward a package that included the usual sensible reforms that have been talked about for years. It included more border protections and sanctions against employing undocumented workers in the future, combined with a path to citizenship for currently undocumented workers.
This debate goes to the heart of who we are as Americans.
6 years earlier, an even more ambitious and sensible reform effort, spearheaded by Senators Orrin Hatch and Edward Kennedy and endorsed by President George W. Bush, also collapsed. The logjam on immigration is one of the most tangible results of our current polarized political climate. Even those who supported these efforts in the past, like Senator Marco Rubio, today distance themselves from any such policy proposals. None of this will change until one central reality changes. America's current immigration system is broken. The border is in turmoil. Millions of people are gaming the system. Unless this stops and a system of laws and rules is established and followed, Americans will not support immigration reform. The uncontrolled waves of migration hitting the southern border are making a mockery of the idea behind political asylum. In the wake of the Holocaust, after 1945, several countries around the world announced that if people had legitimate fears that they would be killed because of their ethnicity, religion, or other such factors, they could apply for asylum status. It was clearly meant for extreme circumstances of persecution of individuals. Now, however, millions of people come to the border of the United States, and by the way, the same is happening in Europe, and they all claim asylum. Although some of them might genuinely be victims of targeted persecution, many appear to be economic migrants fleeing poverty and disease who are understandably searching for a better life. Some are victims of violence and gang warfare, but that is not what asylum status was meant to cover. After all, the same was surely true of earlier waves of migrants from, say, southern Italy or Ireland. Today, there seems to be no real difference between most asylum seekers and simple economic migrants. I don't blame the would-be immigrants for people seeking to come to the United States or France or Italy. They are making a rational decision. They're claiming asylum gives them the strongest possible chance to stay. And while their cases are being adjudicated, they can often slip into the country and begin working anyway. This is not the only part of the immigration system that is failing. The bureaucracy devoted to it is understaffed and overworked. President Donald Trump deliberately jammed it up even more, to the point that routine business visa applications from countries such as India can take months and months. Some students cannot enter the United States even after getting admission and full scholarships. President Biden deserves credit. He's trying to fix things. He's expanded an existing parole program to include Cuba, Haiti, and Nicaragua, in addition to Venezuela. He's been criticized from both the left and the right. And in this particular case, at least, it's a sign that he's doing something right. But he needs to do more. In December, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, the son of immigrants, announced a new policy for Britain that more directly acknowledges that the asylum system is broken. And he's followed up by putting forth legislation to bar asylum seekers who arrive illegally in small boats. President Emmanuel Macron has also proposed measures to try to manage migration into France along similar lines. As an immigrant myself, I am convinced that Americans are not hostile to the idea of immigration, but they are hostile to lawlessness, to people getting in not through following rules and laws, but rather because they slip in due to chaos and crises. The tragedy of the current situation is that America needs more immigrants. And at its best, it has a proud tradition of welcoming and assimilating them, us. But as long as lawlessness rules, it keeps immigration alive as a political issue, makes sensible reform impossible. It creates resentment in the population, including among legal immigrants. Now, with climate change, political instability, and economic crisis, the factors pushing more people towards the United States and Europe will only increase. Now is the time to devise an entirely new process, one that is not tethered to categories like asylum seekers and normal migrants, that recognizes the realities of today and addresses them. Otherwise, the politics of immigration will only get worse, which will be a tragic loss for America. That is our report.
It'll be a tragic loss for the world. because we didn't properly operate things and put things in the right hitting to where one hand strengthened and embraced the other hand. Instead, we're fighting against one another. I mean, I've actually heard somebody say, well, we don't really have to worry about our adversary coming over from the sea and taking us out, that if they just give us enough time, we'll take ourselves out, pretending all the gun violence and all the fentanyl overdoses and stuff. It's sad. We are in a sad, sad state right now that I guarantee you our ancestors that have already done come and gone, and those that helped to establish America after the Revolutionary War, they are literally rolling around in their graves towards wondering what in the hell is going on in the United States. Those are facts, my friends. The only thing that I can tell you is that if we ever come a time that we needed to depend upon the Father towards giving us the insight, giving us the ability, giving us the knowledge and what to do and how to do it, that it is of today. We need God. Just like Billy Graham's son, Franklin Graham, says that the only thing that's going to save this planet is God. And if the people aren't willing to cry out to God for that help, then we're going to be a deteriorating society that eventually will collapse. And whenever it does, woe be unto society is all I gotta say. Woe, woe, woe be unto society whenever that occurs. Thank you for listening. Good luck to all of us. God bless America. God bless our troops. God bless our endeavors towards where we go from here. And shalom.